68% of women and girls believe if they see themselves visually represented, it encourages them to try a new sport. That's why, to help inspire the next generation of female cricketers and drive further visibility of women's sport, Metrobank and the ECB have created a new photography bank of high-quality images of women's and girls' cricket. The images will be accessible to local cricket clubs free of charge via the ECB Resource Hub, with professional standard imagery available to use across their websites and social channels to assist with the formation of new teams and recruitment of players. To find out more, check the link in the description. Hello and welcome to the Wisden Women's Cricket Weekly podcast. What a show we have for you today. Northern Superchargers are the champions of the 100 and they have a new star in Davina Perrin. Just 18 years old, she played the innings of the competition and perhaps the innings of the 100 full stop. A spectacular 42-ball century in the eliminator. What a talent she is. In today's show, we hear from Mark Butcher on what makes Perrin so special. We also hear from Davina's parents, the wonderful David and Patricia, about a week to remember for their daughter. And of course, we hear from Lauren Winfield-Hill as well about this year's tournament, her team of the competition, and what the future of the 100 should look like in the women's tournament. I'm Yas Rana, and first up, let's hear from Mark Butcher. Butch, one of the moments of the 100, not just this year, but all 5 years combined, was this Saturday. Davina Perrin, just 18 years old, hitting 101 off 43, just the second 100 in the women's competition, comfortably the quickest, bringing it up from just 42 balls, 15 fours and 5 sixes, 20 boundaries in 43 balls. It was an incredible moment and an incredible innings too.
Yeah, fabulous. I mean, I've seen her play 3 innings of note through the course of the summer. The first time was right the way back in one of the blast double headers, when she would have been playing for the Birmingham Bears, I guess, against Durham. And she made 80 and ended up being carried off the field with cramp. She got cramp throughout her body and whatever. It was a bit of an ignominious end. But that sort of served notice of the sort of talent that she has. And then there was a 70 earlier on in the 100 tournament as well, which was also extremely eye-catching. And then, of course, it all culminated with the 100. And the thing about her game, I guess, is that she plays like it. She plays like a bloke, and I mean that in the most complimentary of ways. In that, when it comes to looking for extra power or to try and find the boundary or to look for a scoring option, it's not confined to trying to hack the ball across the line towards mid wicket. She can go up and over mid off, over extra cover. The footwork is brilliant to give herself enough room to hit through the offside if the ball is on the stumps. She's got a one-handed scoop, which I think she should patent because it's the first time I'd ever seen it. And it just, that everything about her, the sort of effervescence of her character, the athleticism, all of these things that are starting to become slightly more normal in the women's game as sort of professionalism really takes hold, and we get sort of 4 or 5 years down the line of players being able to train and play as professional players as opposed to sort of part-time ones. And the fact that she's only 18, the fact that she had a whole family there in one of the boxes, having come through the ACE program as well, which is a huge feather in the cap of ACE and Ebony Rainford Brent and her efforts to reignite the interest and the love of the game of cricket in the Caribbean community here in England. Just meant that the whole thing was just like the perfect moment. And the fact that she talked about her drunk auntie during one of the interviews was also just the icing on the cake. It was magical. There are a lot of good things about the tournament. A lot of good things came out of it, but that by far and away was my favourite moment, and I'm sure a lot of other people's as well.
Yeah, there's so much to like about her. I think one of my favourite things is just who her idols are. Bear in mind this is an 18-year-old
Yes.
who was born in September 2006. and her idols are Viv Richards, Brian Lara, and Michael Holding. That is
Yeah.
amazing. You're going to go far. That's a really good base to start from. That Superchargers side that won the whole thing in the end, they've got a sort of new gen, new look top four with Perrin up top, and then Phoebe Litchfield and Annabelle Sutherland, both of whom are 23 or under. Do you see the women's game changing in front of our eyes at the moment? Look at someone like Sutherland in particular. She has a power game, which means that, as you're alluding to earlier with Perrin, it means that she just has more options than most of the players at the top of the women's game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the rest of the world is catching up with Australia, really, isn't it? Obviously, Litchfield and Sutherland, both, Australian internationals. And part of the reason that Australia have been out in front for as long as they have in terms of the women's game is because of that, because of the athleticism of their players, their ability to play. That they potentially play on a lot better pitches than women do across the rest of the world, which helps. But also that sort of that attitude of the game being played in a way that is as close to the men's game as possible. Not restricting themselves to a certain style of cricket because of the relative lack of strength or whatever else. And so the rest of the world is sort of catching up slowly with them. And of course, having a lot of those players in the 100 throughout the women's game will only help the sort of the young English girls, in fact, see up at close quarters just what can be done, what's possible, with the right sort of attitude, to training, the right sort of attitude to practice, and all the rest of it. So, yeah, I mean, it was very, very good, and the Superchargers beating. See, the Southern Brave was interesting. They won eight out of eight, and of course would have gone into the final as favourites. I saw a lot of both teams, actually, a lot of Southern Brave and Northern Superchargers. Now, the Southern Brave played in a pretty conservative way. They were very, very good, very disciplined. But given a situation where the game kind of got a little bit out of hand, or they had to chase something that was, above sort of a 130 score or something like that, you felt as though they might get stretched, despite the fact that they had, the likes of Danny Wyatt and Sophie Devine and Maya Bouchier and people like at the top, because their game had been very, very contained, very controlled. They bowled so well, Lauren Bell and Lindsay Smith, etc., had bowled so well that they never had to extend themselves with the bat particularly. Whereas the Northern Superchargers, yes, they could fall in a heap and have a shocker, but they also had an upper end that was way above anything that the Southern Brave could do. So, given the situation in the final, given the runs scored in the final, you felt as though the Superchargers were perhaps the more exciting of the two sides to watch. And in a game where it was stretched a little bit in terms of scoring rates required, you felt that they probably had the upper edge.
Yeah, you mentioned the creativity of the Perrin one-handed scoop, but you've also got the Litchfield two-handedness. I've never seen a player who's so two-handed. She doesn't really switch it. She just bats right-handed 20% of the time. It's good to watch. Just on that Perrin knock again, there are lots of players over the years who've been really exciting at a really young age. But I genuinely can't think of someone at that age doing something so special on the big stage as well. And not just, oh, that's a fun, exciting cameo that makes you excited for that player in the future, but actually to just win a game like that. That takes a lot and actually says a lot more for a lot of really talented players. You don't know if they can bend games to their will like that until their mid-20s. Perrin's done it at age 18.
Yes, at age 18, yeah. And again, and in the style of doing so as well. You think of sort of Alice Capsey when she first came onto the scene, and the sort of, her skill with the scoops and with the sweeps and all of those types of things. And that was brilliant in its own right, but it was kind of one-dimensional. It required, using the pace of the bowler and all that kind of thing. Perrin blasted it. One of the sixes she hit was 92 meters, for goodness sake. And her ability again to hit, to be able to hit bowlers good balls, their best balls, good length, top of the stumps, and be able to find areas to hit those that didn't require using the pace of the bowler to hit it for four. She was able to use her own technique, her own strength, her own skill to be able to hit it in areas other than areas behind her. And that's a big step change. And there have been a few players over the course of the 100 who have had that ability. Obviously, you've got the two Harrises from Australia who do it. Nat Sciver-Brunt has always been able to do it, but there are more and more now who are playing a game whereby four fielders outside the circle throughout the game outside of the power play is going to become a massive problem to bowling teams if if more players start to have the ability to hit long off, hit long on, see long off back and stick it over their head. Davina did that too. So that is a game changer. It was a brilliant moment. Can't stress that enough.
Next up, a very special chat. Yesterday, I caught up with David and Patricia Perrin about a week that their family will remember for a very, very long time. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure it's been a very busy week for you. Just talk us through what your weekend was like. Let's start with Saturday and then Sunday.
Oh my, excited, exhilarating, just blown away in a nutshell. Very proud of what Davina's doing. She's got a good head on the shoulders. And I suppose Mum was worse than me.
But it was something else. It was even, I think, the night before, I don't know, I couldn't sleep. I remember turning and tossing, and I was just praying, and I was praying for Davina and the team because, it was just scary. We were just like anxious, like it was us praying. And I'm like, come on, she's been playing since she was 7. Why am I getting anxious? So when everything happened, I was like, that's why this was coming, So yeah, it was. We're still buzzing until today.
Where does Davina's calm head come from? Because I thought it was amazing, not just in the performance itself, but also how she handled the attention that came afterwards. She seemed so calm after she just pulled off one of the best innings in the history of the 100.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, from a business perspective or work perspective, our heads are pretty calm there. But thinking about it, maybe a grandmother.
No, Davina, I'll be honest about Davina. Davina is different. Davina, she's just a unique child. From the time she was born, we noticed she was talented, I think I don't even remember what age, maybe even before she was 1. She was speaking very young. Even the way she was coordinating things, wasn't she? Mm-hmm. So there's something about her, because I'm not calm. David is more calmer than me. I am not calm. I'm not going to take that. But even when she's under pressure, even when she's going through, I've never seen her give up. I've never seen her. She'll come at the end of a bed and every day after cricket game, whether she's had a bad day or anything. And I look at her, I said, but at the office today, when she's hit maybe 3, yeah, Mom, never seen her angry, never seen her being negative, She has her moments, but I'll never, like most of us will get frustrated or she'll be locked herself in a room for that. No, she's always ready to say, you know what, I'm going to do better.
How are you feeling during the innings itself? So obviously Davina gets off to a flyer of a start. And then when you realise, hang on, she's doing something really special here. Obviously, I don't know if you saw this, but the Sky camera kept on panning to you guys in the ace box. What was it like in there? Davina was talking about one of her aunties potentially enjoying herself more than everyone else.
So what happened yesterday, that day, there was about 20 of us. And I'm from Malawi. Back home, everybody's watching. Back in Wolverhampton, Grandad, everybody's watching because we couldn't get everybody, back at over that day. And I was anxious. And the older I get now, and this time I'm very nervous. So every time when she starts, the first few balls, I can't handle it. I'm so like up and down. I hide. And everybody's like, oh, Dev is cool. Then one of our friends says, no, Pat is even more anxious. Look at his legs. He was shaking in his legs, moving up and down. And I'm always praying for the first 10 balls. I'm like, as long as she's not out, we know that she's settled. So we are like, come, focus. We're shouting, focus. So throughout that, and then when she hit 20, I was like, okay, that's fine. That's better than what she did the other game. So then we just started being more excited that we didn't sit down.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a case of I'm normally calm and I'm just taking this innings step by step. You know, don't get out of first ball, get off the mark, get to 5, get to 10, your double figures and just build. But it got to a stage where I looked at the run rate at one stage and I'm sure it was close to 300. And I thought, something special is happening here. And then she just kept going and she was hitting the ball maybe the furthest than I've ever seen her hit it.
Yeah.
And this is after saying 2 weeks ago to me, Dad, I think the bat's gone. I began to get very nervous. And as Patricia said, I didn't realise my legs were shaking. Well, obviously, everybody else behind me did. And then just enjoying the moment. And I think I was possibly more nervous when she was on 90-something, within reach of a boundary of getting the 100. And then when she got it, oh my, it just another level.
Talk me through that moment when she got to 100.
No, she got on the 90s, 97, was it?
Yeah.
And then the feeling was, I'm thinking, you've got to get your ton now. You've got to get it now. You cannot miss out now. And then she hit that leg cut backward point. And as soon as it went past the fielder, we knew that's going to the boundary. And then the box, the eighth box, just exploded. Yeah. Oh, I didn't remember her celebration in that moment for the first few seconds or so.
Because the aunties were crying, everybody was jumping. Some of them was the first time to cricket. So we had a nephew who came all the way from California, and it was the first time he's actually watched cricket, Davina, he's football, professional cricket. And he was like, I've never witnessed anything like this. And I think as a mom, there's part that they showed of me, emotional crying, seeing the whole stadium. And Oval is one of her favorite stadiums. She's always loved when she plays at Oval, standing up for her. That was, still emotional. That was emotional. That was really, really good. I was like, that's my 18-year-old daughter. She's made it. But, in that, she deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
And not only because she's my daughter, but Davina works hard. We have never woken up Davina to say, you're late for cricket, you're late for school. She's the one who actually comes and wakes us up and say, Mom, Dad, we need to go. She never wanted to be late.
Mm-hmm.
Even when she was at school, anything that she was given, she played tennis, she played squash, netball, hockey, anything that she was given, she gave 100%. Athletics, she was running for, national champions. She's given 100%.
How's she doing? Because it must be some week for an 18-year-old to have the weekend that she had 100 at the Oval, and then the next day her team going on and win the trophy. How's she doing? We're talking on Wednesday, so a few days later.
Yeah, a few days. Well, Monday she came back with us. She went, and then on Tuesday, which was yesterday, she went training back at Edgbaston with the Bears. But headspace, she's in a good headspace in spite of there's been a lot of calls and what have you, whether it's congratulations, well done, media stuff, etc. But she's been very good from a headspace perspective, which is, I think, quite unique for somebody of that age.
One thing that has stood out for me in the interviews that Davina's done, she was on this podcast actually a few months ago when she was talking about her cricketing heroes. And for someone born, I think in 2006, to say that her cricketing heroes are Viv Richards, Brian Lara and Michael Holding, that is some serious parenting to make sure that those are her heroes. Talk us through how that happened. My
dad is from Jamaica. So obviously our background is Jamaican. I was born here. But I've always loved the West Indies. My dad took us when I was young. And it was a case of, I always used to put it on the YouTube, 1970s, 1980s West Indies. And Davina always happened to be with me. She actually started playing cricket when she was 6. She just fell in love with cricket, I think, through, first and foremost, watching people like the West Indians, the way they not only played the cricket with style and flair, but the enjoyment.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sums up, I believe, where it's come from.
She's actually she's reading this at the moment, this book. Yeah, so she's always getting a lot of knowledge, and she's always she'll come back and she'll watch a lot of things and for her to improve, or how can I do better, or she'll watch lots of videos. I remember when she went to have lunch with Michael, is it Michael Holding?
Yeah, Michael Holding. She was what, 11, 12 at the time. And she was going through a bit of some adversity within the cricketing circle. And a friend of ours who was coaching her, giving her some coaching at the time, Andy Jackman, arranged for us to meet with Michael Holding.
Yeah.
And he just gave us some words of wisdom and encouragement and what have you, that she's going to have obstacles on the journey. And it was, I think, another key moment on her cricketing journey to have somebody of that calibre who she seen on via YouTube for a number of years and respected and admired how he performs, was telling.
Well, given your affinity with West Indian cricket, was it something extra special seeing Davina do that at the Oval with the history of that ground?
Yeah, NASA top.
Yeah, the ideal ground to do what she's done was the Oval.
Yeah.
Given the experience, summer of 1976, Viv Richards 291, Michael Holding, I think it was 14 wickets, phenomenal.
And talk us through the involvement with Ace. When did Ace come into the picture, and what's their involvement in Davina's career been?
So Ace came into the picture, Davina must have been 12, 13 at the time. And
before we contacted Ebony, didn't we? To mentor, Davina, because we thought, she could do with somebody that can relate with her. And because that was a challenge. I more come as a parent, because Dad and Davina more cricket, strict cricket. They've been on the road throughout every day. And, and I think I was saying to Dave the other day, sometimes we forget, but I would give credit to him because he has invested a lot in Davina's cricket. Until, recently when she's had other people involved, but he's helped her make a lot of decisions and stuff like that. So I think there was a bit of issues, and we just thought it would be nice just to have somebody who's also from black background, just to, she can relate and she can mentor. So we started speaking to Ebony, and then the Ace came, and that was it. We met up, and she's one of the ambassadors since then.
And I think it's important to remember that from Davina's perspective, and for other black girls, there were only 2 black females that have represented England at cricket. So from a journey perspective and a mentoring perspective, Ebony is the ideal person. And she still mentors her along with Chevy, the ACE program. They give the most tremendous support, and not just in times of adversity, but especially in times of adversity. There may be another day where that needs to be spoken about in more detail, but it just goes to show the character and the measure of the ACE program, Ebony, Chevy in particular, what they do and what they are continuing to do for the black minority community plus others.
I mean, cricket's history of black involvement in the last 20 years has been poor. It's much, much lower than it used to be.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, performances like that on Saturday thrusts Davina into spotlight in a way that's slightly different as it would be for someone from a different background. How sort of aware of that image are you guys and Davina, being someone who straight away, as you say, only 2 black women have ever played cricket for England? Davina, or overnight, basically becomes a role model to a community.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what's very interesting. Hopefully this will help to answer the question. When we got back on Monday evening, I popped in to see my dad. And my dad was saying he has had so many phone calls, particularly from people of his generation. Now, my dad's 88, so you can imagine. And he says the amount of people that have said how inspired they feel, how uplifted they feel, it reminds him of that period through the 70s and 80s when there was a lot of oppression towards minority groups, especially minority groups of colour. So it's like this. It feels like a rebirth.
Yeah.
That we are somebody, that we are part of the community and an integral part of the community, irrespective of age.
Yeah, and I've had few even from Asian moms to say, "Oh, my daughter, she can't stop. If Davina's around, can she see?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. Once she rests, we'll be able to arrange that." One of the schools not far from here, one of the assistant head teacher, she's one of our friends. She's asked, he says, because we've got a lot of black kids and Asian kids who love cricket. Would Davina love to come and speak to them? I said, no problem. I think this is what it's all about. And one thing we always teach Davina is that you have to humble yourself. When you're here, this is home. We have to live how we live in this house, and you have to continue humbling yourself. You cannot let the 100 get into your head, or, that's just professional what you do, but you need to continue humbling yourself. Remember where you've come from, which people have been supporting you throughout.
Well, she opened that tin of beans. I told her to put it. She's still not put it away. Wait until she gets back.
I guess finally, what's it like from, I suppose, like a parental point of view? Davina is still so young, right? So she's only 18 now. But when she was first involved in the 100 in the squad, she was only 15. At that point, she's literally still a child. From a parent's point of view, how do you look after her at a very basic level in an environment that can be pretty unforgiving? You're dealing with pros who've been playing international cricket. It can be quite ruthless. What was that like, having your child in that environment at such a young age?
It's not easy, but I think this is what Davina's been mature. She's taken everything really, really good. Mm-hmm. I was finding it difficult, and I'll say to Dave, it's too much, or it's this. You'll be like, she'll be all right, man. And to be honest, I have to give credit. They've been fantastic cricket-wise, supporting our
Northern
team.
Superchargers.
Not only, I mean, all of them. In terms of when she signed a contract at 15, they'll make sure that safeguarding was really, really in place. There's always one of us around. Remember?
Yeah.
They'll book a room for all of us. They won't let Davina go, without one of us. And they were supportive. It was hard because she was selected when she was 15 for Phoenix, and she didn't play, and that was very heartbroken. For the first time,
2 years.
I think the second year, that was the first time I really saw her a little bit doubting herself, and not Phoenix was not winning then, and everybody was like, she's the most athlete, why is she not playing? And then I think the day that she could have, her grandmother passed away. And she had to leave Nottingham and come home to to see her grandmother. So that was the downside of it. And then she joined Superchargers. Wow. We didn't even need to worry. They looked after her. They've been the team. And she was like, Mom, I'm in the team of Crossy. Oh my God. And she was excited. And I said to her, Davina, take every opportunity and learn from these guys, especially the Australian girls. I said, you need to learn from these guys. If you humble yourself, learn, you're going to go far, and then come back to play this year, just improve what she's been, doing the last 2 years.
I don't think I want to say on this forum regarding some of the previous experiences, but Northern Superchargers have been absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and also this season at Warwickshire Bears has been absolutely brilliant. So, and I think we've got to be conscious, and the conversation has to take place at some stage about the barriers holding especially minority groups back, because unless there's a clear understanding and transparency, we'll always have the struggle.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. It must have been a pretty manic week. It's been great talking to you guys, hearing more about Davina's story, and yeah, best of luck with everything that comes in the future. Thank you. And last but not least, Lauren Winfield-Hill on this year's competition and what the future may hold for the Women's 100. Lauren, first things first, I heard you're seeing them well. You went quite well on the weekend.
Yeah, I know, about bloody time, hey. I scored more in one innings than I did in the month previous, but hey-ho, that's the game. No, it was nice. Like it sounds really boring and really like it wants to be more exciting than that, but it was just nice to be really like focused and just like give nothing away. I was just sort of playing a little game out there, actually. I was just like, I said to Rich, he was like, that's the best of, and I know there's tier 2 and the bowling and all this, that and the other, and that is certainly fair, but I was basically like, right, how many balls can I go without playing a loose shot or losing control or forcing the game? So yeah, so sort of like what maybe why have I not been doing that the whole time? But it was good. Like I didn't give a chance till I was on like 160 at all. Like I didn't play a full shot for 90 balls, which was quite cool. Like it was nice to just play a game within a game and yeah, sort of feel that focused and in control, which sounds really boring and mundane answer, but that was the most pleasing bit, to be honest.
Most people listening to this, most people who've ever played cricket have never really been on 150 odd. What's it like when you're like well past 100 and you're just so in the zone and you're obviously seeing it as well as you were?
I don't know. It's just really cool. Like, it was just really nice to be in that sweet spot of like just being in flow and in total control of what you're doing. I mean, it's kind of nice because everything sort of settles down and it becomes like a bit of a free pass after that, which just helps you just enjoy it. Really, to be honest, it sort of feels like a free hit after you make you make it. You've made a decent total, and it sort of just becomes a bit of fun and games after that. But yeah, it was good. Like it was nice. It was good to just to be able to do things for that amount of time and just repeat what I'm doing, really.
On to the 100. So we had the knockouts over the weekend. We had the Davina Perrin Day on Saturday, and then the Superchargers went on to beat the Brave. You called it last week that the Brave needed to get a loss in before the final, and look what happened. No defeats until the final, and then defeat in the final to the Superchargers. On the Superchargers, I thought they were a really fun team. Obviously, Brave had that all-round depth, but the Superchargers with that very young core at the top of the order, Perrin, Sutherland, and Litchfield forming three of the top four. And then even with the bowling attack, someone like Grace Ballinger had a really good season, and Kate Cross had something to prove. She was brilliant. Lindsay Smith as well. They were a really fun team.
Yeah, they were, and I think they were. I reckon, well, they definitely were the best team in the comp because they won it. I think it's always a tough one when you go through straight to the final and you've got this like week of just waiting to play as well. I think sometimes you're better off being tired and a bit sore and turning around quite quickly straight into the final. But I think the Superchargers they've got a great team. I think even the inclusion of Nicola Carey, like when Wareham went down, I thought, this could rock the boat a bit here. But the inclusion, like Nick Carey came in and played beautifully. Arguably was sort of more consistent than what Georgia Wareham had been, to be honest, for the Supercharge. But I think Annabelle Sutherland and Phoebe Litchfield, like they are just the creme de la creme of overseas at the minute. And I think Supercharge have got probably the best core of domestic players. You look at Alice Davison-Richards, Lindsay Smith, Grace Bowl. I think left armers that bowl those first 5-10 balls are absolute premium. Like if you look at the teams that have had quite good success, you've got Mahika, you've got Bollinger, you've got Tara Norris, obviously before she broke her ankle, but they've sort of been quite niche, and I think they're a huge asset actually to a team. So yeah, they're a well-oiled machine, and even playing them in the group stages, you thought they're proper. They're a good fielding unit. You've got, Davina Perrin had quite a quiet tournament, really, apart from that one score. It was sort of one extreme to the other for her, really. She obviously got that 70 odd and then struggled in a couple of games, which is quite often the way it goes. But that knock was like one of the ages. I was playing at the time, and I remember coming off, and everyone was like, Perrin scored 100 off 40 balls. And I was like, what? Like, what? And I was an absolute loser, and I was straight onto MV Play watching all of her boundaries, and I was like, some of them sixes, because I was like, what like playing surface were they on at the Oval? Because the skeptic in me was like, oh, was it a small boundary? And then you watch some of it and you think, geez, she's belted it 5-10 yards over the boundary, and like some of the shots were just unreal. But yeah, like I say, they're a great example of they've built something over a few years. They've retained their domestic players. They've kept the same overseas together. They look like a team that are having loads of fun. I think Lisa Kitely coming in, they've got some really good like backroom staff. They've got Will Gidman involved. He's great energy. Like they've got some real good people involved. And it looks like an overnight success, but it's not. It's probably been building for 2 or 3 years for the Superchargers, and it just all sort of came together for them at the right time.
I think you're right to pick out Nicola Carey, because even in the final itself, they were only chasing 116, but they were also 59 for 3. They were going probably just above the required run rate, but that lower middle order hadn't had to do a lot of batting recently. I think Bess Heath only batted 3 times in the competition, and she's coming in at 7. So Nicola Carey getting that 35 off 25 to just make sure the game was done alongside Annabelle Sutherland. It wasn't a complete foregone conclusion before she came in. Just on Perrin again, that is, for me, it's arguably the moment of the 100 ever. An 18-year-old doing that in front of a big crowd at the Oval in a knockout game. She's a seriously special talent.
Yeah, she is. It's an innings and a knock that will never be forgotten in the 100. And probably, this might be a big call, but like maybe life's just changed forever for Davina Perrin, in terms of a knock of that. You get 100 off 80 balls or, 90 balls in a semi, and you'd be talked about for a long time. Off 40 balls is absurd. And I think this is like it'll be like when she's playing for England, and when she looks back on her career, and it'll be like, well, what's the turning point? And like, this will be the turning point, I believe. Just for the style and the scale of it, and the how important that game was. And you sort of those sort of traits where it's like you want big game players, and clearly she's a big game player.
I had quite a few messages after the innings with people saying, "Oh, why isn't she in the England squad? She's amazing, etc., etc." Do you think English cricket needs to be a little bit careful with her, because she is so young? She's still only 18, and I guess the women's game, where it's slightly different to the men's game, is there is less of a volume of cricket over the winter. And maybe, do you think her workload and what cricket she actually plays needs to be considered a bit, rather than just chucking her straight in? I think the 50 over World Cup's a bit of a stretch out on the subcontinent. She's done okay this season domestically, but she hasn't exactly banged down the door so much that she must be in that World Cup squad. She's obviously not been selected in it, announced last week. How do you think the next 6 months or a year should look like for Perrin?
Yeah, I wouldn't be touching her in 50 over cricket just yet. I think it's it's probably a different skill set and a different mindset as well, and it's too close, in my opinion. I'll be looking at the T20 World Cup next year, trying to expose her to as much T20 cricket as you can between now and then. I'm not saying that she can't play 50 over cricket for England, but there's no rush for the next World Cup, so you don't need to rush that format of the game. But I would say that I think with one of these, like a knock like that as well, like you probably want her to just chill and have a holiday and go and be an 18-year-old for a month or so. Like just ground yourself and decompress a little bit, because I can imagine a phone's going nuts. Everyone wants a piece of you. And I mean, she's probably the kind of character that would love that, but at some stage it's quite overwhelming. And then I'd be right, let's go again here. T20 cricket, how do I get myself out to Australia, get in those comps? Who knows, to replace, what the WPL holds this year. Like it's all been a bit quiet on what that will look like, whether that's an option or a replacement in that, or whatever that looks like. But I'd be saying, right, T20 cricket, how do I get myself in that squad for a home World Cup, and how do I get myself in that team, and what's my way in? And I think that, in my opinion, should be the goal for her. And if I was sort of amongst the England brains trust, I wouldn't rush it. That's still a year, it's still just less than a year, but that's a lot of cricket, that's a lot of time. But I certainly wouldn't be rushing her before then.
We've given ourselves a bit of homework before today's pod, where we both tried to pick a team of the 100. I found this really difficult.
Yeah, I found it so hard. I've got a few like dashes and question marks in a few spots, because I'm like, oh, how do you decipher between? Right, so I'll talk about the first one, which I'm really struggling with. So my keeper it was a real issue because I thought if I didn't go Chatley, I've basically got a keeper that's not really going to bat, which doesn't give me much balance. So I've gone Chatley, Perrin, Litchfield, Sutherland, which was a really hard one because I really wanted to get Grace Harris in there, but I just felt like Sutherland with the all round, like Harris's bowling's not been. Um, sort of at a premium. So I've gone Sutherland over Harris, but I really wanted to get Harris in there, but she's not in there. Sophie Devine. I've actually picked this like a coach, so I want like my spinners. I want rather than just being like they've got the best stats, whatever. Sophie Devine, Jess Jonathan, Emily Arlott, Maddie Villiers is my off spinner, and then I've got Mahika Gore, Lauren Bell, and Tilly Corteen Coleman.
On the keeper situation, this is a broader question. So when you look at the leading run scorers who kept wicket this season in the 100, you're top of the English list, and then above you are I think two Aussies. I think Mooney and Redmayne. Kira Chatley didn't keep wicket this season at all. But it is quite interesting looking throwing it forward the next couple of years with English cricket. Amy Jones is obviously the incumbent, but she's obviously been part of the England team for a long time and has been relatively inconsistent. She's done very well recently against some of the lower ranked nations, not as well against the top nations. It's quite interesting looking at how there aren't necessarily hugely obvious alternatives at the moment. Jones herself had quite a quiet campaign. Kira Chatley has had a bit of a breakout year in domestic cricket, but wasn't keeping in the 100. And then you look at some of the other names, English names have been keeping a lot. They didn't bat a lot in the 100. Someone like Rihanna Southby, but she's not alone in that category. And you got a few other exciting keepers who weren't keeping as well in the 100.
I think Jonesy's under big pressure, and I think it might be close to time for having a look at somebody else. And like you say, the stats against the top 3 or 4 teams in the world is not good reading, really. And in terms of other competitions, I actually don't think you need one keeper moving forward for England in terms of doesn't have to just be this is the next keeper we're going for. Like I actually think I think Kira's put herself on the map, definitely. You've obviously got Seren Smile, but for me, she's got to move domestic teams to keep. Otherwise, she's not going to be viewed as the next England keeper. Like, you can't be the next England keeper that's not keeping, because then you're not a keeper. I think Rhea Southby in 50 over cricket is the way to go, because 50 over cricket, you get more opportunities to make an impact with the gloves. Where she will bat is probably the position that she's already batting anyway. You look at probably isn't going to get above a number 7, and that's fine in 50 over cricket. I think she is the best. I was going to say gloveman, but she's not a man. What do you even say, glover?
Pure keeper.
She is the best pure keeper in the country. So 50 over cricket, biggest impact. You need to take the most opportunities. And if your top 5 and 6 is gun anyway, it doesn't matter that you're batting 7 or 8. And she's more than capable with the bat. We just haven't seen it because she doesn't bat a lot in the top 5. Like, I would love to see her get more opportunity consistently in that top sort of 4 and 5. And let's just see if she is a run scorer. I think Seren Smile is, I think her 50 over stats in the domestic game are really good. I think she's not quite done it in T20 cricket, whereas Kira has probably done it more so and banged the door down more so in T20 cricket. So then does Kira, pip her in terms of actually, well, you could get Kira in as a T20 keeper. She's a good keeper. Like she's certainly more than capable with the gloves, but she's taken the game on. She's had a good strike rate. She's scored plenty of runs. The opportunities that you get into, you don't necessarily need. You see it now where loads of people are just becoming key. Like, you got Laurie Evans, Tom Kohler-Cadmot, like anybody can keep, But in T20s, it's not quite as you don't get the same volume of opportunity, and it's not quite as important as in 50 over cricket. So there's no reason why you couldn't have Kira looking at T20 cricket and Rihanna Southby looking at 50 over cricket. And if Seren Smale moves and takes a glove somewhere, you know, her name well and truly comes into the running. So yeah, that would be my sort of thinking. I think if you're looking at where Jonesy's, if she's not batting in the top 5, then, you know, Rihanna Southby can play for me, because you basically just keep picking a keeper. You're not really picking an all-rounder.
Yeah. I mean, actually, even if you look at numbers with the bat this season, I think Southby actually has the most runs in the One Day Cup for any English keeper. So
I think 50 over cricket, you look at the cycle as well, like where we are in the cycle, in terms of that next 50 over World Cup. Now is roughly that, you know, after this World Cup, clearly, now's the time to be having a look at what's next, probably.
So my team's not as good as yours. I've not picked a team thinking about all balances and who's turning the ball away from one side.
So my team's beating yours, but yours is probably statistically better.
I'm not even sure.
All right.
I sort of went a little bit more vibesy. I think it's half stats and half vibesy. I love my middle. I love my top 6, and I'd love to watch.
Let's hear it.
So Meg Lanning is opening with Davina Perrin. What was quite difficult was Nat Sivabrunt was the only player in the tournament to hit more than 250s. So there were loads of players who had quite similar competitions. Okay. Which was quite difficult.
I really struggled. Yeah, I really wanted to get Meg Lanning in, but my thing was the keeping thing. So I was like, if Kira, I know she didn't keep in this, but I was like, I have to pick a keeper, and the rest of us weren't getting a sniff. So I sort of had to knock Lanning out there to get Kira in, and I obviously wanted to go with the English Perrin rather than the just, you know, I didn't just want an Australian overseas 11.
On that, it's quite interesting when you look at the leading run scorers in the women's competition. It's packed full of Australians.
I mean, I think the big thing is it's not. You look at the World Cup squad for England. It's not been. There's a few that have done okay, but it's not been good reading, has it, for who's on that plane? I know it's a different format, but I'm pretty sure Charlotte Edwards would have liked to a bit more form going into into the World Cup. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. So then I've got Phoebe Litchfield, and basically in my team, the top 6 have got to do a lot of batting, and and 3 to 6 float a bit. So I've got Litchfield, Grace Harris, Nat Sivabrunt, and Annabelle Sutherland in my top 6. And then Southby's keeping at 7. And then I've got my 4 bowlers are Lauren Bell. She had a ridiculous competition with the ball. She's a Born England player who's very much in form. Tilly Courtine Coleman, she went on under 6s. Kate Cross had a really good comp, and especially a finish to the comp. And I've gone Grace Ballinger as well. I thought she was impressive towards the end of the competition. I think helped a little bit because the Superchargers had 6 bowling options, so she didn't always have to bowl 20, and she could be front loaded as a new ball option. Like in the final, she only bowled 10 balls, but only conceded 6. I think she took a 3 for in the eliminator as well. But every time I saw her this competition, I was really impressed. 23 years old. I know she's played in the 100 before, but she really hoops it. That's the thing. Like, really, really hoops it. And maybe 100 balls suits her more than a T20 competition with the volume of balls she can bowl. But in a 100 ball competition, when you can bowl lots and lots in the power play, she's a real handful.
I like I say, those left armers up top, give me 10 balls, swing it, see if we can get 2 for, are absolute premium, I reckon. Alexa Stonehouse into that mix as well. We sort of missed her off at the start when we were on about left armers. But yeah, there's something about the left armers up top that a lot of the teams that have had good power plays have had the left armers.
Yeah. And as you say, it's not something that the women's games had loads of. If you look at men's T20 competitions, they're left armers everywhere. Like new ball bowlers, they're absolutely everywhere. It's not quite happened in the same way in the women's game just yet. So yeah, I thought she was really good. I just wanted to finish about asking you about the future of the women's competition. There's a lot been said about what the 100 could look like in 2026. And to be honest, we don't really know. It's been mooted that there's going to be a mega auction in the men's competition, but we're sort of assuming that everything that happens to the men's competition is also going to happen to the women's competition. I guess, first of all, what's that uncertainty been like? Staff, players, etc. No one really knows what the teams will look like in 11 months' time.
Yeah, I mean, first thing, I don't think it's been overly helpful because, I mean, if you said to anyone you don't know what your job looks like next year, I don't think it's going to be overly well received. But I think, the presence of like owners around and murmurs, it was all quite real this year in terms of, and even just like the language. It's like, well, this is the last year of probably this group or this team or this brand or whatever it is. And I think for staff as well, I think that's the thing is people always just think it's the players that feel uneasy, but it's staff as well. They basically don't know what their jobs look like. Are they going to come in and get overhauled by Mumbai Indians staff or, LSG staff or whatever? So I think, it's uneasy for anyone. I think the big thing is I don't see why the men and the women have to have the same rules about mega auction, about retentions, about pre-signings, whatever it is, because it's not the same game. Like it's the pool of players that a men's team has to choose from is so different to the women's game. And there's probably another part, like the men playing so many different franchise competitions that, they're used to being with a different group all the time and the core of the group changing like that, but they'll go from 5 or 6 competitions a year, so it's very different. And if you lost 1 or 2 players, probably wouldn't impact it because you just get 2 more players in that are of the same standard because there's loads of players out there to pick from. It's a little bit different in the women's game, I feel. And you don't have as many competitions to play in. So you're ripping up the script on another competition and starting afresh. You look at use the Northern Superchargers, for example, like that has been a 3-year project for them in terms of building that core. The big one was they needed a seamer. They got Kate Cross a few years ago. They've kept your Lindsay Smiths, your ADRs. They've got 3 absolute jet overseas. And they've built that across 3 years to get to the point where they've now got a trophy in their hands. Then you're going to start again, so, and the pool of, I think there'll be big fights over overseas because I think you look at the teams who have been successful, they're overseas, as much as it pains me. There's no, you can't hide from it. The overseas have basically won teams the competition. It hasn't really been the English players. I'd love it to be the English players, but it hasn't on the most part. So I don't think it has to be the same for the men and the women. And it seems to be that the auction is the thing that the owners want, where it gives them a real opportunity to flex their muscles and go against each other and show how big their wallets are. But I don't necessarily think it has to be, if you did, I don't know, you did 4 retentions, you could do 6 in the women's game. You'd still have enough that's then in the auction, that's then, evening out the teams, ripping it up a little bit without it being like, who is this team? So, like, for example, use the Oval Invincibles men. Like Mumbai Indians bought the Oval because it's the Oval and it's the team that's won the most trophies across the whole competition. If you only have 3 or 4 standing players from the previous year, you've basically not bought the Invincibles. You've bought a ground with Will Jacks, Alice Capsey. You know what I mean? Like, you haven't actually bought that brand. So I think that's the other bit, is that like the reasons that owners have wanted certain teams is probably based on what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years.
Do you worry that the women's competition might be almost viewed as a bit of an afterthought now? Because in the last 5 years, a big part of the 100 success has been the prominence of the women's competition. I know it wasn't the plan initially, but the double headers have worked really well. I went to a game a couple of weeks ago and I was at the game before 2 o'clock. So it was a 3 o'clock start. I was at the ground at 1:45. There were literally thousands of people, predominantly kids, literally queuing up more than an hour before the game to get in. It's a massive success story in English cricket. For all the noise about the men's 100 and what it does to the men's schedule, the women's 100 has been a massive, massive success. Are you worried that it's not going to be a priority and it isn't something that needs a lot of change? It is something that is working well. It's a really good tournament that is viewed in high regard across the world.
Obviously, like the WPL, the finances in the WPL is more significant than the 100, but I think the 100 is the highest standard competition in the world. You know, you look at the WPL and it's a battle of the internationals. I think the domestic players are getting a lot better, but the fielding's not great. The boundary sizes are pretty small. As a whole competition, I think the standard and the product of the 100 is the best competition in the world. And I think that's seen with, you know, I think the Oval, and I know it's a place that gets, you know, large crowds, but like the average is like 13,000-14,000. We had nearly 17,000 at the halfway mark of the women's game. Like that is like, you know, that is mega. No, you know, the crowds in India are you know, absolutely trounce all over that. But as an overall product with all components taken into consideration, I think it's the best comp in the world. You'd look, it absolutely blows the Big Bash out of the water now, because you look at crowds, you look at venues, you look at overseas, etc. It's the comp that people want to play in, and that's men's and women's. You know, you talk to any overseas in the women's game, they're chomping at the bit to play in the 100. You look at Adam Zampa, I thought was a great advert for the 100, where he said, I wouldn't fly all this way to bowl 20 balls for any other competition or club. Like, it's sort of like mic drop. That, there you go. And I think they'd be absolutely stupid to get rid of the double headers. The one brand thing works like nothing else. There's no other women's, you know, there's no other women's sport in the world that I can think of that has the men's and the women's so side by side. You look at some of the other powerhouses in women's sport, like Arsenal Football Club, like they don't go side by side. You know, it's under one umbrella, but it's not like cricket. So they've got such a unique opportunity compared to any other sport in the world. You know, rugby league does it a little bit. Rugby union does it a little bit, where you have a few fixtures. But I think there's a real unique opportunity to build a brand and a club bigger than any other sporting event in the world, because there's no other sports that do men's and women's side by side on the same day, you know, in the same venue, like the 100 does.
I guess one of the things from the outside that I think has been quite impressive in the 100 in the last 2 or 3 years in particular is it must be really difficult to form a team identity when you're only with each other for 3.5, 4 weeks a year. And I guess, like, how difficult is that to build? That's not a 1 year thing, right? So if the owners click their fingers and it's almost starting from scratch again in 2026, where it could be something where you only have 4 retentions per side, how difficult a process is that, building that identity, that team identity from scratch? Because as a viewer, sometimes you feel like it takes you 3 weeks when there's a lot of change to sort of get to grips with who's playing for who, but there has actually been better consistency and better team identities over the last few years.
Yeah, and that's why it's got better and better. I think that's why the standards got better. What it means to players has got more significant. The identity and the collectiveness is stronger. Otherwise, it's just another franchise comp that you rock up for, take your money, try and score a few runs, take a few wickets, and dottle off into the sunset. Like, it doesn't mean as much. I think those things take a long time to build, and they're easily broken. You know, it's not if it was easy to just pick a team, like the best teams don't always win. It's the teams that are, like, you look at the Superchargers, they clearly had a great time. They got on with each other superbly well. They've built that over time. They've retained the same core of players. And then you see the product of that. I think if you're not in a dressing room, you think it's like, well, why can't 11 or 15 people just come together and nail it and click. And it's like, well, if it was that easy, every team in the comp would have won the comp, but it's not that easy. And I do think in the women's game particularly, a little bit in the men's game, but mostly in the women's game, that can be very quickly compromised by ripping up the script and making it a bit a free-for-all. Like you look at if Phoebe Litchfield is not the whatever it's going to be next year, Sunrisers or Northern Superchargers or whatever, like people follow the people and the clubs. So I think it's one of those things where if you don't understand sport and culture and environments, you think it's just an easy thing to galvanize. But if it was that easy, then why is not every club like that? And I think it's one of those things where teams who have performed poorly consistently, you look at probably a Birmingham Phoenix, they can't wait for the mega auction, because they've struggled to build that. They've struggled to build, and you can see that. I can see that on like playing against them. You can see that watching TV. That real tightness and that connectedness. They haven't got that. They've got loads of really good players, and that's probably where it starts and ends. So I think I actually thought on paper they were strong as anything this year, but they haven't got that, and that's because there's a change of players all the time. There's been a change of staff. Like it takes time, and yeah, like I said, I don't think the main sort of headline for me is that it don't need to be the same men's and women's. They're the pool of talent, and the nature of how many franchise comps there are, and then probably just the nature of being a female versus a male. Like I think females sort of crave that like identity and that security and that feeling of being a part of something. Men would do it. Men would crave that as well. Like you look at Donovan Ferreira signing for pittance for what he's worth because he wanted to be a part of the Oval Invincibles. But that's because you've created something that people want to be a part of, and you shouldn't be hindered for that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I guess just to finish, if any listeners have any questions around the future of the women's competition, do get in touch, because it's something that we're going to address as much as we can over the next few months while things are still up in the air. Cool. That's everything for today. Cheers, Lauren. Catch you next week. That is everything for today's show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you next week.